Hey, what's good? Earle Ford is a U.S. Army veteran, an attorney, and an IRS watchdog. Now he's taking all of his experience into a congressional campaign against Anna Paulina Luna, who is the lady that wants to put Donald Trump's face on Mount Rushmore. Earle Ford is trying to take the incumbent out of Florida's 13th district. This is my conversation with Earle Ford. Before we get into it, remember to go to coconutjustice.com to get you some clothes that I think would look good on you. Let's go. Hey, everybody. So since it's getting close to tax season, I wanted to get you guys some tax help. So I went out and found Earle Ford. He's an IRS attorney, but he's also running for office. Florida. I'm going to find out what this CD is. He's Florida CD13. Earle Ford, welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Excited to have a good conversation. Good talk.
Yeah, so first off, it says Florida CD13. What does CD?
So a congressional district.
Okay. Okay,
So,
you're the first person I've seen using that. All right, cool.
oh, yeah. So congressional district 13 encompasses most of Pinellas County, the western portion of Pinellas County, east of portion of St. Pete East, and all the way up to Tarpon Springs.
Okay. So I'm in Florida, St. Pete. Is that like northeast?
So it's in the Tampa Bay area. Like we always,
Northwestish.
yeah, north,
Okay.
yeah, I guess central Florida west, but
Okay.
it encompasses the entire Tampa Bay area. So you have Tampa, and then Pinellas is that little kind of almost peninsula west
Yeah.
of Tampa Bay. So it's and 13 was just redistricted in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they made it a little more red in there. With Florida right now, there's redistricting's on the map as well, so we don't know what it's going to look like in a few months either.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've been hearing that DeSantis wants to redistrict and everything. Is it gonna be as dramatic as they did in Texas?
I don't know. There's not a whole lot of information about it. The only thing I've heard from Tampa Bay Times or some news articles is they're looking to zero in on a little more of the blue areas,
Mm-hmm.
which there is potential in the 13th because what it used to be is St. Pete's a pretty decent sized city, and Tampa Bay is the
Mm-hmm.
sister city, the bigger one. And historically, they were separated, 13 and 14, in their own districts. During the redistricting period, they put very blue St. Pete together with Tampa to make it very, very blue, make that a blue safe seat. But in doing so, it made the 13th much redder, much more Republican. So we
Okay.
don't know exactly what that looks like or what is in the plan, but it's a potential um, to focus in on that area again, and maybe again make it even more blue in some capacity and guarantee those other seats.
Mm-hmm. Are you running under the Democratic umbrella?
I am. I
Yeah.
am a lifelong Democrat.
Okay. I know there's a lot of folks starting to run independent and stuff like that. So it's always, um, I don't, not that it's always, it's interesting when people decide to run under the Democratic umbrella just because it seems like the establishment Democrat have like poisoned the punch. You know what I mean?
No, I think it's a multifactorial issue.
Mm-hmm.
That I think most Americans I talked to a lot of people, and they always want, like, they don't want the party association. Like, even Democrats, I don't want the party association because I'm my own person. I have different views here and different
Mm-hmm.
thoughts here. But the thing that always you come back to, and it's is you do need party support. That's and in law school, I actually took a political election or election law type class, and there's some weird psychology. Everyone asks why we have this two-party system, and there's almost like this natural psychology where we need this like bilateral system that we fall
Mm-hmm.
back to, and that is why I'm not saying it happens all the time, but that is why we always fall in this Democratic Republican thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're seeing is a huge influx of independents, but in order to run successfully, you do need party support. We're still stuck in this political game of
Yeah.
you need money, you need, people to embrace you, and unfortunately that's with the parties. Despite, the huge surge and especially in Florida, especially my district, there's been a massive surge in independents or non-politically affiliated people.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, when you're running, you do need that support, I believe.
Explain to me, when you say support, what does that mean? Do they send you like a batch of stickers, or do they give you a bunch of phone numbers?
No, so it's could be different levels. So the biggest thing for us, like local small campaigns, utilizing like the caucuses, canvassers. So a lot of these clubs and caucuses are like really well organized. Like in Pinellas, you have like the Democratic Hispanic Caucus, you have Stonewall Democrats, you have the Black Caucus. So you have all these caucuses, and they're political organizations. And what they do is they don't pick a candidate. Like they don't in the primary, they don't pick a candidate. But what they do is they'll help you out. You get invited into events, and you go. People will volunteer on your team. But the other thing too is at a certain point when your campaign grows, then you can start paying, the Florida Democratic Party for data. And a huge portion of running for office is, it sounds crazy because everyone puts their data out there willy nilly, it seems
Hmm.
now, and with AI being super crazy, but is all buying data in
Yeah.
order to, so, and that's all, proprietary information with the party. So,
Hmm.
but at the end of the day, too, if you make it past the primary, then that full support. If you're in a winnable race, you're going to get the full support of the party. So
Okay.
you make it past the primary, and like in the district I'm running is a DCCC targeted district.
Hmm.
So if I make it past the primary, or the other candidate makes it past the, they're going to have, regardless if you don't like the Democrats, if you have a Democratic label behind you, the party would come in and make sure you have most of the resources you need.
Okay. Okay.
But
I'm
it's
trying to
like,
figure. So if you're talking about this, say in film,
mhm.
um, say you have an idea for a film or a TV show or anything like that. It's almost like, so the studios, whether it be Netflix,
Mhm.
Disney, whatever, they want you to basically do the footwork to prove out your idea.
I-
And then once you build your audience and everyone loves it, then they're more willing to give you money to fund that project.
That's 100% accurate.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense.
But there is like the big stipulation though to that is if you're an insider,
Yeah,
they don't effectively say, "Hey, we're gonna make sure you're the guy," but they make sure there's mechanisms, stuff in place.
sure.
And I experienced this firsthand
The
because,
film industry does too, for that
yeah,
matter.
yeah, like like, oh, this guy, like, it's a great story. He came up from, he built his campaign from nothing. He came out of nowhere. What a
Yeah.
great story! And then like we're gonna support him in the primary. But the other thing, there is that other side of saying like, I talked to the previous, some other candidates, previous candidates, and you have to go. When I started this process, the Democratic Party, they expect you to go, kiss the ring. Like, hey, have you talked to this person to see if they're going to run? Have you talked to this person to see if they're going to run? Are they going to give you the blessing? And
Huh.
then, like, you see, and that's kind of this like systemic problem within the party. And I don't know what it's like on the Republican side, but it is very caucus driven, and it's these little bubbles, and you have this whole society of people that, not a whole society, but you know, politics is their social life, right? Like they
Yeah.
go to the galas and they go on
Mm-hmm.
a Thursday night when I'm putting food on the table for my kids and playing with them, getting ready.
Sure.
They're out Thursday night, then they're out Friday night at, another society meeting. And
Yeah.
these circles, and when it's caucus driven, from my experience, and I've talked to a lot of people when I was at the IRS, or we're like people like me and you aren't involved because we're working, you know, like we have to,
Yeah, because we're normal.
yeah, we're working, and you have this little, and it's not necessarily a knock on those people, but I think sometimes your worldview kind of shrinks because you're not waiting in those daycare lines. I mean, the school lines, right? You're not driving like a crazy person. You're on limited sleep, getting your kid to and from soccer practice. You're saying, hey, like these are my issues, and you hang around all these political people, and it's either very, you got a lot of very young people involved, which is great, and like absolutely, but again, when you're a little older, it gives you a good, better worldview. You need input from young people, and you also need input from seniors, but also a lot of retirees are in these things, like as a social group. So
Hmm.
if you're retired and you have stable income, stable retirement, your needs are radically different from mine, who I'm still trying to build a 401k, and I got to pay for my
Yeah.
kids' college. So I think that that's somewhat of the disconnect within the party, but it's also, again, you have these different divisions within the Democratic Party, and the establishment is always going to be the establishment because they have the money,
Right.
and
They're
when they
the
have,
cool kids in the class.
yeah, and it's just,
Yeah.
and for me personally, I was kind of shocked when I decided to run that I felt I was qualified. I'm an attorney. I had a little bit of time in the military. I did very specialized work at the IRS. I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm also have a
You
little bit of
still
life.
got plenty of legs left. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, like I'm a perfect, like I think I'd make a perfect candidate. And people are like, oh, your resume is great, but how are you gonna do it? And literally, I was given a list of all these political people, political connected. Like once I started digging and making connections, like you need to talk to all these people. Well, I was like, that's kind of like bull, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like I shouldn't, if I'm a politician, I should be not in these circles. I should be on the ground floor with the people I represent. I should be in the union shops. I should be at the talking to people who take care of disabled kids and
Hmm.
being involved, not going to the like the,
Only the parties.
yeah. So
Yeah.
um, I think that's the frustration of people like me running, and I'm sure a lot of the candidates, because you want to make a difference. You're putting yourself out there. You're doing everything right, but it's also
Right. It's called the political industrial complex. The same way Trump talks about environmentalism and the green movement and everything. He says it's a money grab and all that stuff. It's kind of the same thing.
yeah. And it's again, and yeah, it's just, and I get people have their like their issues, their key issues, and that's important too. But it's
Yeah.
also important to have some nuance and context that this is a very complex world we're living in, and
Right.
people are complex beings. We come from radically different backgrounds, different life experience,
And we
and
complicated it with social media, so now everyone is talking at the same time.
you like we're on headlines, or you got 5 seconds of time,
Yeah.
and we need to take a step back and just really kind of look at each other, like think about the humanity, the empathy, and compassion, because that's what everyone
Just
needs.
remember that we're all Americans. We're
Yeah.
on the same team.
Yeah, and it's just like, hey, like you might have an issue too, like the biggest issue of your life is over here, and this person too. But like, we got to move forward. We can't just get stuck on it. So if I
Right.
could take care of you right now, let's focus on that, and you could help me out later.
Yeah.
It's not like me, 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 me. We gotta, and like people are hurting right now, so
Right.
it's just
And to kind of point at a certain situation that's happening to prove this conversation that we're having is California is the fourth largest economy in the world.
mhm,
You have all of these states that surround or that are all these red states in the middle of the country that are struggling.
mhm,
And California is giving way more money to the federal government to keep those states running.
mhm,
So then California has to sit and listen to people that would go bankrupt if it wasn't for California money. We have to sit here and listen to these guys talking about how terrible California is and how it's a washed up state, but yet you're living off of California money. And it's not even that California cares that you're floating on California money. We know that you need it, but at least have a little bit of introspection and say, maybe we need to not keep shitting on our sugar daddy.
No, you're right. I mean, because I think one of the things too I kind of talk about in some like, you know, we were always in this together. Like the United States was never perfect, right? Like
Right.
we acknowledge, but at a certain point there were some like morals, ideals, values that we shared as a nation that allowed us to, you know, make those steps towards, you know, being a more, you know, perfect union. We'll never
Hmm.
get there, but we at least had shared values. And
Yeah.
you know, I grew up in Wyoming, so Wyoming is the least populous state. Is a massive, a lot of federal money goes into Wyoming because only 500,000. Well, at the time, 500,000 people lived there. I think maybe closer to 600 now. But you have these massive national parks, and you have the Bureau of Land Management. So all
It's
that money is being.
beautiful out there.
But
It's
that's the thing,
beautiful out there.
like you said, these big blue states are funding a lot of those programs, but historically it was probably like, you know, if you talk to a person in California, you're like, oh, well, the Yellowstone's really important to our national, you know, national heritage, or, you know,
Hmm.
it's a thing of national pride. So I have
Yeah.
no, and hey, like that those kids, you know, that need that are going hungry in Mississippi, that's a us thing. That's an American thing. So okay, that's fine. But when now we're in a political environment where it's being politicized, when, you know, like Mississippi's like our programs, you know, they're struggling and they're not doing anything to improve the lives of Mississippi, and they're relying on California, but they're doubling down on like their, you know, their belief system.
Yeah.
So no, and it's only making it worse for Mississippi, or, you know, or
And
you
then
know.
you mix in Brett Favre, who's been stealing millions. Him and his crew has been stealing millions from Mississippi.
And then, but then it becomes a pit, you know, California's versus Mississippi thing, and then it used to
Yeah.
just be like, and you saw it with the fires though too. California's like, hey guys, we helped Florida out with, you know, hurricanes, like kick us back some cash with, you know, with these fires.
Yeah. And they're like, no, everyone in LA is gay and God
Yeah,
hates them.
yeah. It just became so. Yeah, it's like we're so. But the thing that we fall back on is this is a narrative being driven, and it's very effective,
Right.
especially on people who, you know, on social media, or like, you know, some seniors, or I mean even young people. But it's the overall thing I'm seeing though too. They're driving this narrative. They need this narrative, us versus them, to cover up a lot of the failures, the failures that a lot of these states have failed to govern. You know, people are struggling. So when you wake up in the morning, you're on your phone, you're seeing something that makes you pissed off,
Hmm.
and then you're pissed off all day about, you know, some other California, or you're pissed off about, you know, New York or whatever. And then at night
Yeah.
you realize like, oh, like crap, like my electric bill's due tomorrow, or I like the ACA subsidy just doubled my health insurance. So, and like you go to bed worried about that, but you wake up and you're scrolling all day. So it's this narrative being driven in order to divide us, in order to keep us distracted.
Yeah. And then you meet someone from California and you're like, oh, they're not that bad. They don't have devil horns coming out of their head.
No, and that's it's I will say too, it's the funny thing about Florida is, um, like I this is the nice thing though about running in Florida though too. Like in my time, once I kind of left the service, I mean the IRS, and getting like really into the nuts and bolts of it. Florida is Florida, but it's still like you meet like what I think what we're seeing on TV, and like, you know, we're different out here. We are very Floridian, but it's like it really is the same. It's just
Yeah.
unfortunate, this narrative of them driving us versus them,
Yeah.
and the powers that be, when you have the governor say California, California, like that's it's us. Like we're
Yeah.
different states, but we're still in this together. Like, and the big thing for, you know, I think you and me, or, you know, a lot of veterans, how many units you like, that guy's from California, that guy's from Florida, that guy's from Wyoming, that like
Hmm.
no. no one cares. Like
And then nobody cares. It's just part of the conversation. That's all it is.
yeah, it's just you're just bros.
Right.
And that was one of the special things about this country is you take pride in where you're from, but also when you're next to another person, you're just an American.
Yeah.
And just getting back to
I
that.
will say, especially in basic training, I will say when people learned that I was from Chicago, the drill sergeants would use me as an example of people that would steal shit from your Foot Locker if you didn't lock it.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So I'm assuming you had a few of those smoke sessions with like the whole, I don't know, and like a locker would be, they'd keep somebody wouldn't forget to lock their,
Oh yeah, dude. And then the whole room got destructed, got
yeah,
destroyed.
yeah. We had a
Yeah.
guy that, they called him the MRE bandit, and he would like the MREs from the field, and he put up in like those like the tiles like,
Hmm.
and he put it high up in there, so at night he would eat them. And they called him the MRE bandit. When they found out, man, that was like hell to pay.
We had a guy that tried to take, they were empty shells from the rifle range.
Hmm.
And if you ever went to the rifle range in basic training, boy, however many uh, rounds they gave you, you bring back that many shells. And this dude was trying to, even though they were empty, we got smoked because this dude took two empty shells. And
Oh,
when we found it under his pillow, boy, he
oh.
caught a beating in the bathroom, boy. Like,
Uh, those are some days. It's funny thinking back on those days. Like that was crazy. Wow.
yeah.
It,
Yeah, they made me do some things that are contrary to who I am trying to be as an adult.
yeah, that was that was it was an eye opening experience. I mean, but it I don't know. It is one of those things, and I think even nowadays you should like try and reconcile a lot of it. It builds that unity, but also
Yeah.
and
It breaks you down, and it teaches you how to love your country in a different way.
I think that goes back to like the us thing, like right? It's just
Hmm.
you and another random person from I mentioned I grew up in Wyoming, so when I was going through basic, I had
Is that
guys.
where you were born?
No, so actually I was born. My dad was Air Force, so I was born in Incirlik Air Base in Turkey when we were stationed over there,
Wow.
and then so we
Are
came
you
back.
nervous that Trump is trying to kick out people that weren't actually born here?
Not really.
I'm kidding.
Oh
You're
yeah,
an American.
yeah. Both parents are American, but I mean, maybe for a brief second, maybe like this guy, what is he gonna do now? But like, but no, that again, that was the whole thing. I remember me growing up. I grew up in Cheyenne, Wyoming, most of my life, and when I went through basic, you're talking, you hanging out with dudes from Brooklyn, New York, or
Yeah.
some guy like, hey, I grew up in the hood in New Orleans or
Mm-hmm.
something,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just it was great. Like, and then you also saw people change. I saw one of my good
Did you
buddies.
serve in the army?
I served in the army.
Attaboy. I've been
Yeah,
talking to a bunch of Air Force. Mad respect to your dad. Mad respect. But
yeah,
that's no army.
I was really weird. My entire path was very weird. I graduated University of Wyoming, and I was a little older. I was working for an airline at the time. I had a great job,
Mm-hmm.
like a pretty decent job. And then for me at 25, I was just like, man, like my dad served, both my grandfather served, my uncle served, and I don't know if I was playing too much Call of Duty at the time or whatever. And I was like, I'm gonna, I was just like, I'm gonna enlist in the infantry.
I'm in.
And, so I enlisted in the infantry, and went under an airborne contract, and yeah, so I did my. It was just
Nice.
yeah, so it was just one of those things, though. I think, and it goes back to this thing, like like you love your country, like you want to serve
Mm-hmm.
it, and I think and I'm not saying it's exclusive to the military, and I think that's the other thing we should emphasize, like coming up. You need a lot of people serve their country in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledge that, like teachers, firemen,
Sure.
teachers especially.
Yeah.
But it was just like, my way of wanting to serve this country that I loved. and I'm sure obviously there's some benefits to it, but I feel like a lot of people, it really expanded. Despite having, like I said, I had a college degree at the time when I enlisted, but it really opened up a new world to me.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people, it's just it does. And I was gonna mention one of the guys in my unit. He was from very rural Georgia, and I remember when I first met him, I was like, this guy's racist as like he's super racist. Big tall white dude dropping N bombs, like didn't care. No one liked him. 3 months later, that all changed. It
Yeah.
all changed.
Yeah.
It was incredible, and like it was just seeing that system of us. It's like the whole like it's all that cheesy stuff you hear. We're better together. We're being united. It matters.
Yeah, that's proof.
Yeah, and the other thing too is I'm sure you feel the same way. Is in basic training, like I don't remember the soldier's creed, but I can tell you what the army values still matter to me, and everything I didn't spend a lifetime in the army. It was like around 3 years or whatever, but that those still matter.
Same here. I did something hella quick.
Yeah, and it was just, but those still matter to me. Like I remember in basic they're just drilling away what's the Army core values, and you get smoked if you don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I take that with me in my life, and then everything you see that's going on is, our government, or our leadership when we were in, they drive this idea home of what it means to be serving in the military, honor, respect,
No
integrity,
man left behind.
and it's all being left behind by the highest levels of leadership now, and it's simply unacceptable.
Right. We have sold our soul to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
And we see it every day. We see it every day because Americans are struggling, and we are sending so much money to different countries.
Yeah. And the tax breaks too. And
Yeah.
one of the things too is I again, we were talking earlier about driving home like patriotism and what it means, and we're in this weird reality of people who think they're the most patriotic are the people who just take, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had spent a short time at Fort Bragg, and there was a guy with a sticker. He was a special operation. He was special forces,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a simple sticker on. And for whatever reason, he's like, "Don't call it your country unless you're willing to give anything back to it or something like that." It was just something simple like that. But that's kind of like stuck with me, right? Like you see like people at the food bank, working at the food bank, or doing like I just toured a disability center a few weeks ago, and that's not easy work. But these people are like committed to it. They love what they do.
Right.
That is giving back to your country. But when you
Right.
talk about these people at the very top, Trump was given the world, and he's just taking.
Yep.
You have this crazy opportunity to improve people's lives across the board, and you're just taking, and that's what they normalize in what's going on right now, and with the billionaire class, they're taking from our children who bust their behinds, try not to bust their behinds through college, and like they go to work for SpaceX, and they come up with a new engine design, and they come up to make it more efficient. Like they pat him on the head. Yeah, it's a great job. Here's $80,000, and then Elon Musk takes a $45 billion contract, and his net worth goes up even more. So they're stealing. They're just taking
Right.
from us.
Right. Under the guise of ingenuity, and look at how we're making everything better, but you're forgetting, dum dum, that we have proof that we can't. We need to like take a breath
Yeah,
and take a look. We got people that are struggling. What
absolutely.
good is having that cool engine if no one is going to be able to ride on it?
Absolutely, and I don't. It's just one of those things. You think of like some scenario. You see like everyone like watches some rocket shoot up, from Cape Canaveral, and then out in Daytona Beach in like some rundown neighborhood, some kid, like some hungry kids watching that launch, go up in
Hmm.
the sky. And
And he's thinking to himself, gee, I wish I could afford a book about the moon.
yeah, I wish I had yeah, like I wish I had could eat something and like just see just $90 billion burn. I mean, obviously science is important, but
Exactly.
it's just
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that drives me batty about this very situation. We're supposedly the richest nation on the planet. We're supposedly number one, and we're supposedly, yeah, 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 rah, rah, rah. We have all the smartest people. We have all the best schools, all that stuff. But we're not building scientists.
mhm,
They're getting scientists from literally everywhere else. Yet the American population has everything it needs to pump out scientists, to pump out teachers, to pump out all of these people, the business people.
mhm,
We can pump out all of these things, but the powers that be are choosing to spend that money on flipping rockets and other countries.
yeah. No, and it's also like yeah, keeping us down. Like
Yeah.
you talk about education, and like it's one of these things. It's becoming. I think education's a massive national security issue at this point.
100%.
It needs to be labeled as so, and we need
100%.
but it goes back to uplifting communities across the board.
Hmm.
Private schools are stealing public money. We know
Hmm.
teachers are getting
I was talking to, I can't remember his name right now, but he's running in Florida. He said that in his area, private schools are allowed to take part of the public school for themselves and not even have to pay rent.
yeah, that was the past like a few months ago, and there's a firestorm across that. And then the other thing too in Florida is the legislature awarded a bunch of money to private schools. I forgot
Yeah.
the amount, and they had zero oversight, no oversight, and now there's a massive like I forgot the amount of money, like all these millions, and even now the Republicans are like maybe we should have had some oversight. But the reality
Yeah,
too,
go figure.
and I don't know what the statistics are in Florida, but I do know like in other states, it was like somewhere 80-90% of the people getting private vouchers were high end earners. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't going to people like me and you, like that look like
Right.
or like the kids that grew up on food assistance. It was going to
Right.
mom.
And
So
that's what drives me crazy too is people fall for when rich people tell poor people that poorer people are stealing their money. The poor people in the middle are looking at the rich people saying, "Yeah, those people are stealing our money."
yeah,
Meanwhile, the rich people are there because they're stealing your money.
yeah, and it's crazy, and this whole culture of like we're demonizing people for over $80 a month, versus again the massive fraud, the massive waste at the very very top with government contracts. Like you could talk about the ballroom, or you could talk about like even in Florida with like the Hope scandal, like all these weird scandals going
With
on.
the Rick Scott scandal,
Yeah, I
with
meant
the whole
fraud.
Rick
Yeah,
Scott. If you don't know, Rick Scott is he's a
prosecutor.
congressman, right?
No, he's a senator.
He's a senator. He's a senator for Florida that got busted with the largest health insurance scam in Florida history.
Mm-hmm. And guess
And then he points at the black and brown kids in the inner city saying, "See, it's them."
yeah, and he kept all of his money. And I remember the first time I went to you go to Naples, like in South Florida,
Huh?
and you see his house. It's like a 40 million. It's massive.
Yeah.
It's like a 30-40 million dollar house. But yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the
He
thing is
lives probably next to a bunch of other crooks.
yeah, but that's the thing. They point the game right now is you point at people that don't have the ability or the capacity to defend themselves. You punch
Yeah.
down to people who don't have a voice because
And pay attention to how they've been all this AI stuff that's happening now.
mhm,
They're trying to convince you that reality isn't the real reality.
yeah, and you see,
And they
and
have their hands in your pockets.
I'll tell you this: the craziest thing is when I created the my Facebook account for the Congress, my congressional page.
Mm-hmm.
You start new, right? Like, so over the years you have your normal Facebook page, so obviously the algorithm kind of like is adjusted to whatever you're normally. If you start fresh on Facebook with any account, I really with this, it is it is nonstop, right? Like the whole Zuckerberg thing with Trump is 100% true. You are connected. You're like assigned to Republican Congress people who aren't even in your district. I mean, like in Missouri, you're
Damn,
getting all
dude.
these Republican comedians, like the Hodgett twins, people I like,
Those
people
guys are
I
clowns.
yeah, but like
Those
all
guys
these
are clowns.
like this whole like conservative ecosystem that for years said, oh, the liberal meat. No, like it is force fed to you. And that
Yeah.
being said, there is a lot of. I mean, I'm not saying liberal like the left is completely innocent, but there is a huge disparity between left and right, and it is. I'm like on my if you go to from my personal page to the congressional page, it is night and day difference. Because on my congressional page, I'm not following anybody. Like I don't,
Mm.
I'm just keep it empty. I'm not showing like it's just like a professional page. So,
Mm-hmm.
but that's being force fed, and there's a whole slew of people who can't tell the difference between AI generated. I mean, and they'll
Yeah.
comment like some celebrity wearing like a Gulf of America, like some like Justin Bieber, for instance. Like today, I was on my page and like he's wearing a Gulf of America T-shirt, right? There's no way he'd be wearing a Gulf of America T-shirt. I think in general, but people are like, oh, like God bless, Justin Bieber, that's great, and people just aren't, and even these videos, and people are just not picking up, and it's being force fed to no, there's no oversight. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. And that shows you that we need new members in Congress.
yeah,
Um, because I'm sorry, it sounds ageist when I say this, but if if you're still in Congress, but when you were a kid, you had to stand next to the wall and ask the operator for Klondike 7259, it's time to let go.
yeah, and you're no, I you're I actually saw this on. I mean, Reddit. Reddit used to be my how I burned all my time. Now that I'm so busy, I don't have it. But I remember some staffer on. He's like, "Hey, I'm a staffer. Ask me anything." And I'm a staffer for a senator. Ask me anything. And if someone was like, "Hey, how is how up to date are these senators?" I'm gonna be honest, and he's like, "I'm gonna be honest with you. They don't know what's going on. Like they cannot. These are
If you
smart
don't
people.
know how to fix your email, you need to step back. I'm sorry. There's just way too many things, and things are just moving faster and faster.
And yeah, and he's like the senator I work for is a really smart guy. He's a great legal mind, but he for what like he just can't get his mind around it. And it's just again, it's um, things are moving so fast, but it's like and our generation's wanting to step up, and I think people should encourage younger candidates, to
100%.
because again, like we have a lot of skin in the game, right? I have a 4-year-old and 1-year-old. I can't be
Mitch
honest.
McConnell's on his way out, and he's still making decisions for you and your family. And this mug is like hitting hard pauses in his life.
And and he's having all these medical issues of him falling down, and one of the I've actually befriended another congressional candidate out in California, and he's a smaller candidate, and so we kind of chat, and he's going against the incumbent, who is a Democrat, but the incumbent's like 81 years old, and he's fighting. He's like he's a really smart guy. He worked for FINRA. He was a regulator doing international stuff.
Yeah.
And so he's a really smart guy. He's like very savvy with social media. He's very savvy across the board. But even the establishment response is, he's like he goes to certain clubs and they're like, well, if there's a Democrat incumbent, we have to support the Democrat. Like we have to. Like you sound like a great guy and you have a great speech and you sound like you're fired up and you're doing everything right, but we have to support the incumbent. Meanwhile, I guess the incumbent misses a lot of votes, like a lot of votes. But he's been in power for like 30 years. He's 80 years old, and it's just like, okay, that's unacceptable. But the fact that, again, we go back to talking about the establishment, there's nothing encouraging the breakthrough of these new candidates, since everything's pushing down on them, and so
Yeah.
it's really unfortunate, because you have a really qualified, really passionate, really smart dude running a very, like, he's doing crazy stuff. He's like trying to make the ballot. I don't know how California and Florida have different ways of getting on the ballot or the process, and he had to like drive like, I don't remember, 800 miles just getting people in the Democratic Party to sign off on him to actually have a chance. He's not making money doing this, right? You're losing money.
Yeah.
Um, and people are like, "Oh no, we admire your conviction. Like, it's incredible." But that's the kind of people we need in Congress. And you kind of point to who are the biggest names in Congress right now. It's young people, right? It's young Democrats. It's like people. I mean, Maxwell Frost would probably be the exception, because I think he's still in his 20s. But you have like a slew of legislators between 30 and 40 that are go-getters, that are making things happen, that are stepping up, that are, taking bold positions, and that's what you need.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Because otherwise it's not going to change. The folks that are creating the rules to benefit themselves are not going to try to change it, because they are doing just fine.
they don't want to rock the boat. Like they they
Right.
have some big, and that's the other thing too, is like the money game in politics is real. Like it is 100%. It is the most disappoint. This is the worst thing I heard, and it's come true. Is when you're like run for Congress, is the amount of money, amount of time. You think, oh, I'm gonna run for Congress.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be out like speaking all the time. I'm gonna be meeting people. I'm gonna be shaking hands. I'm gonna be like doing all this stuff. It is phone time. It is call time. It
Yeah.
is you getting these lists and spending 6 hours, like a day. Like, so I'm spending probably around 12 to 15 hours a week calling people. Hey, a lot of them, like, and asking people for money, and that is the game.
Do you do that? Do you do that on your phone, on your own cell phone? You're like, hey,
No, well, we have like there's a
it's
system you buy.
Earl.
Yeah, there's a system that like they use to make
Okay.
it fast, so you could blow through numbers.
Okay.
Like it's like an automated like text and voicemail system, so you could go
Okay.
through it. But that being said, when you
So
make it to
that's
Congress,
part of your resources, is being able to leverage some of this. Okay,
but
cool. That makes
but
sense.
when you make it to Congress, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna change the world. I'm gonna go legislate. I'm gonna read this law. I'm gonna read every page in this new law coming out, and no, your job in Congress is call time.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe it, and I remember Google, and there's an article that members of Congress on their working days, both parties, you're doing 4 hours of call time as a sitting member of Congress, instead of doing the people's work. You're doing
Right.
you're doing
And that's obligated by the party itself.
Yeah, and there was an article with Nancy Pelosi saying like a bunch of incoming freshmen, people like there's all these freshmen, people that just got elected at a sit down, and she's like, and the first thing that she says, like, you guys need to do more call time. And what there is apparently, I mean, I've never been to DC other than a tourist years ago, but apparently you leave the Capitol building or whatever, and then you go into some room. I mean, each party has their own thing, and you go just make calls. Hey, this is
Wow.
congressman thing. Would really love your support. And that's all. You're just fundraising.
Wow.
And that is again a symptom of the system, because the second you're elected, your re-election campaign starts, right?
That's like, imagine being a grassroots candidate, and you're having to, and you're not trying to take PAC money, large corporate money, and all that stuff. Whereas if you're tapped into all these rich folks that want to have rules bend their way, that's the shortcut.
And this is the crazy. I mean, this is the crazy thing too, right? When I told you, I think I was telling you earlier, like some of the lists off the before, but some of the lists have like people that donate only to certain PACs.
Mm-hmm.
But there, we'll find people, right? You'll find people that donate huge sums of money to both parties. Like there is not an outlier. It is very normal.
Yeah.
If you have a Democrat and Republican, right? You like
Mm-hmm.
say candidate A and candidate B, and you donate $3,500 to each of them in each like in the primary and the general, right? When they're elected, whoever gets elected, they still have to take your call.
Mm-hmm.
So you get sway, whoever wins.
No, and
Because
imagine if both of your uh, Congress people made it in. Now you got two of them that are arguing the same points, but on both sides.
yeah, that's how it goes, and that's before you get in the packs that like that also could donate. That's on an individual basis. That's before the packs that you're running or the other packs that you're running in to advocate for certain people. And it's just like for me, the only blessing I've had is I've ran I'm a nobody, right? Like I just left federal service and I was not connected. What happened for me is I connected with a 20 like a young team, and we're like, if we're not going to get our name out there, we are just going to we're just going to run a social media campaign, right? Like that's how you do it. But you'd have to, it's not just like posting on Facebook. It's like you have to pay ads. You have to pay for little
Yeah.
ads.
Yeah.
And in doing so, our campaign is doing very well. I think as a grassroots campaign, like
Mm-hmm.
we have like our
And
average
you're running against a notable
Republican.
incumbent too. Tell the people who you're running against.
I'm running against Anna Paulina Luna. Her she's just I think her older name was Anna Paulina Meyerhofer. She
Yeah.
changed her name before running in order to have I guess more Hispanic heritage.
Yeah, because
Um,
now it's cool to be brown. When it was hard to be brown, everybody was
yeah.
changing their name to,
Um, yeah, and then so she's the one that wants to put Trump's face on what
Mount Rushmore.
more. She wants all the Charlie Kirk memorials. She hangs out with the AFD party, the AFD party in Germany, which has like Holocaust deniers in there. She's been hanging out with Russia. She hasn't hosted a town hall in like 2 years.
Girl,
Uh,
please.
and she was, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people are unsure of about her. And the other,
But she's connected to the money, huh?
she's connected to the money, and yeah. And she's a huge social media influencer. I think she's a big person at Turning Point USA. She was the Instagram model for a little bit, or something like that. Or I think she was a Maxim or something. She was a
Mm,
model. I think that elevated her social media status, and obviously she leveraged that, and that um,
sure.
got you into Congress. But again, and that's kind of why the reason I just like I could do this because
You
although
could
I
be a you could be a cover model?
yeah yeah back in those army days when I was 160 pounds, yeah, absolutely. But it's one of those things like America was always a meritocracy, and I was like, well,
Right.
I served and I had a little bit of time in the military, and I went and I got a law degree, and I became a lawyer, and I had these experiences, and I do complex work at the IRS, and maybe that makes me qualified for Congress. And but it's weird because you think, yeah, everybody like it's not,
In a
but
normal world, you'd be killing it.
yeah. But absolutely. But I will say the best thing I have kind of going on with my campaign is, like I said, we're running a very aggressive grassroots. And like it's weird because you kind of do feel the establishment not wanting to embrace us.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a certain point where money talks, right?
Mm.
Money talks in politics.
Mm-hmm.
People have no idea how much money we've raised, right? Like no one has any until we filed. We filed our FEC quarterly, and then people are like, "Oh, okay, like who is this guy?" And it got to the point where I was actually talked to the New York Times, because New York Times wanted to talk to congressional candidates that came
Mm-hmm.
from the federal service during this whole Doge thing. I talked to the
Mm.
New York Times. I still haven't talked to the Tampa Bay Times. Um,
Damn.
and like and that's even the local papers, because it's just
Yeah.
so hard to break through. But
Yeah.
now we're at a point where, like, because we ran a very aggressive social media campaign, we gave people my background. He's an Army veteran, right? Like, again, right now with the billionaires, basically what I did at the IRS was I was in one of two programs at Target, the wealthiest people on the planet. I worked in that, and so we kind of pushed that on social media, and it got some traction. And all of a sudden, as a nobody candidate, like, we've outraised, two of the big DCCC candidates, right? Like, we just put
Nice.
out an announcement that we raised $400,000 with over
Nice.
12,000 donations. That's grassroots.
Congratulations.
No,
Yeah.
no, thank you. That is grassroots through and through, because people see a normal guy running, a person that has like some experience. I'm not a campaign staffer. I'm not riding someone's, coattails. I don't, and that's what you see is, like, even in Florida, there's like some candidates that are coming up, and they're like announced and they're endorsed by 85 people, like 85 like politicians, because they're all connected. They all
Right.
hang out together,
Right.
and like
They
people
all
like me,
go to the same school. They all
yeah.
go to the same parties.
And yeah, and he's like, and then like you'll see, and then like he'll say like, oh, he's raised 300,000, $300,000 with, 400 donors. Like, yeah, because that's the establishment, that's the party saying, hey, this is our guy, and people like me are, like I'm all the candidates you're interviewing are scrappers, right? They're
Yeah.
they're angry. They feel like the party's left them, or they know they could probably do better because they're not going to have allegiances to just money, because it's more
Mm-hmm.
about money at the end of the day.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
just
Most of the people that I talk to want to get money out of politics. They just want politics to be good, old, boring politics where they're actually doing good things for the country instead of other countries.
absolutely, and it's getting rid of Citizens United, and it's getting rid of, but it's one of those things. It's
Real quick, let's do your wrap up on Citizens United. What's your stance on Citizens
it's,
United?
it's gone. It's gone. Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's we have
it needs to
to.
be. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's constitutional or just legislatively, but it has to leave. It's broken the system, and it's broken the system in record time. I
as
mean,
an IRS guy, have you been able to see behind the scenes how it's affected the country, or is this more of a just this is just what it is, and you're seeing all of it?
no. So not from my perspective, because typically political donations don't count as deductions, like
Hmm.
for tax purposes. What I actually did for the IRS, so I worked in the estate and gift, so a state and gift tax program. So I worked for the IRS for 4 years. I actually started I had a compliance gig when I first started, and then right after that, they hired with the Inflation Reduction IR Inflation Reductionary or Reduction Act gave
Hmm.
the IRS money. So I was able to go into that program. I get hired on. IRS sends you 3 months of very intense training on everything you need to know about trust from a federal perspective, gifting transactions. They do what we call generation skipping transfer tax. We do GSD, which is the distribution of trust money. You do international. The IRS was not effing around. Like, they're like, if you're gonna go in this program, it's 3 months, and then you walk out. And then my first case was $50 million, right? Like, okay, this is the big leagues.
Hmm.
And it's funny because a lot of my friends are insurance attorneys, and you're like, oh yeah, like, settle this case for $500,000, and then I walk out, and then so I always like kind of flex that. But generally speaking, the wealthy kind of, when you reach a certain threshold of wealth in this country, is the federal state tax kicks in historically. And before Trump, it was, I think, $5 million. And then when he passed the tax cuts in 2017, it went all the way from 5 million to like 11 million. It doubled it. So you get more credit. So don't get taxed until you have a net worth of over 11 million, right?
Hmm.
And then it kept going up. And then so with him being rehired, and I'm not rehired, yeah, being reelected, and the new law that just went up, it's still going up. So now it's at $15 million a year. So generally speaking, if you have a married couple, they could combine it. So $30 million net worth. You don't get taxed until your net worth is above $30 million. So it's been a massive, massive, massive tax break for the ultra wealthy. To put in perspective, numbers wise, is that you talk about the one percenters, right? Like a lot of the progressives and Democrats, we want to go after the one percenters.
Yeah.
My group in particular, the amount of money we're dealing with, it wasn't the one percenters, it was the 0.1 percenters. So the top 10% of the 1%. So you're dealing with very complex trusts. Oh, I don't want to bore your audience, but like grantor retained annuity trust, and complete effective grantor trust. All these gifting transactions, they make family limited partnerships in order to, and they get qualified for discounts, and they use promissory notes and self-canceling installation notes and insurance policies. All these complex things that Congress has given them. Congress has given them
Yeah.
to lower their estate tax bill.
Yeah.
And to avoid paying tax. And even with the gifting transactions, what you also see is, again, you have this credit, right? This amount of money the government gives you to in order to lower your estate tax bill. But what you also get is people, they'll say, oh, like some really rich dude has a new AI company, right? Especially in the last few years.
Yeah.
And he'll say like AI company is worth, 1 million, like it's worth $2 million. We'll give you 1,000 shares and it's worth $2 million. And you put it on a gift tax return and you send it to your kid, and so your exemption takes a $2 million hit. So you're not paying any tax out of it.
Yeah.
But what you'll see is they'll get rid of it, and then, I don't know, maybe a year later or 2 years later, that couple million blows in up to $20 million, right? So they avoided $18 million in taxation just by gifting it out. And the thing is, we didn't have, even with the IRA funding, we didn't have, we were good at what we did, but even with the numbers we had, it wasn't enough to keep up. Because when you're handling this stuff, it's not only me, right? We have what we call IRS engineering. We have financial analysts, financial valuation specialists. We have wine experts, art panels, all this stuff that people specialize that the high-end people use. So it's an entire team when we have these cases. And when I experienced Doge firsthand, is I had cases that I had dead to rights, right? I had guys using, that I had a slam dunk case, and I would have covered, $60 to $70 million in tax, no problem, right? I had no one to back me up on the numbers. I had the people that were just hired, or that we have to work with in order to come up with, to let our attorneys know. I mean, IRS counsel and everyone know that, hey, like this is legit. All that was gone. So it was just me, and I had no way of really enforcing it. So, and then I remember talking to my supervisor, and I was like, hey, like this one's dead to rights. This is a case. And he's just like, we have to move on.
Damn, dude.
And so, and then one of the things too is I was recently talking to my friends because, I want to put out this thing of everything we see from an IRS perspective. He's like, dude, we're just operating on the honor system right now.
Yeah.
We don't have the ability to investigate anymore. We don't have the ability to push back. We don't have, like even these dynasty trusts. We don't even know if they're telling us if they're doing distributions. No one's tracking that anymore. So you have this whole world, and when I talk to the New York Times, they're like, oh, did the Trump administration ever tell you to, don't work on this tax return? I was like, no, they didn't have to. They just fired everyone. They fired everyone. And the other thing that the IRS deals with in this world, the state and gift taxes, you have a 3-year statute of limitations, right? You have 3 years to investigate this and make a decision. When they chopped the program in half, like those cases are sitting. So even if there's a case that they're doing blatantly illegal stuff that we would normally catch, it's just going to sit on, it's going to sit there, and then it's going to expire.
After 3 years, it goes away.
So,
and everyone's wondering where all the money is.
Yeah, and so it's just, it's incredibly it's disheartening because I have the first-hand experience of seeing it. But the other thing too that people don't realize is a few years ago, the IRS, I don't know if it's IRS or some other institute did a study though. When the IRS, for every dollar the IRS invests in low, like normal people like me and you, like the return is like $6 or $7. It's right. Like when they invest in the IRS gets a return. When they invest in the ultra wealthy, going after the ultra wealthy, even though it's more expensive overall, I mean more expensive, but the return on investment is like $12. $1 for every dollar spent is $12. But in order, like I said, in order for me to go after somebody, it I have to have an entire team around me, right? Because even though I like I worked outside IRS counsel. We were like my position was formerly designated as state tax attorney, but they redesignated it like a state tax legal specialist or something. Outside IRS counsel, but like it's again, it's you have this whole world of people that you rely on to verify the numbers, to crack the numbers, to because I'm doing the legal analysis, which is fine, but I can't tell you, like what the cap rate, like what's a good capitalization rate on this oil business, or what the valuation is. Like that's very complex work, and they
Yeah.
took all that away from us. Now I know for a fact there's, like I said, there's cases just sitting there, and but meanwhile, normal people like me and you, because our tax returns are simple, the automated collection system, a lot of that's automated, and
Plus, it's a lot easier to count the money that we make compared to the money that they make.
yeah,
That's a
and yeah,
lot of zeros that they have to carry around on their in their bank accounts.
and I'm not, and like a lot of these cases that we'd work, I mean, it takes it's a year long endeavor. I mean, you're getting these tax returns that are, and I'm not kidding, like a few thousand pages long,
Yeah.
and because there's a lot of zeros, there's a lot of moving parts,
Hmm.
and you,
Yeah. And that's one of the things that when normal folks don't understand rich people tax returns. Rich people have entire teams doing their tax returns. It's not like they're sitting there with the, you know, W-4, whatever it is, the W-2, whatever. It's not the same. They have entire teams that are going through. They have different companies and they move money in different ways. And so it's a lot harder to track down all of this moving of money. You have normal people have, if they're lucky, they have a checking account, they have a savings account,
yeah,
and a
and
and a W-2.
yeah,
Like these
and
folks have all kinds of stuff moving and shaking and stuff like that. So you need entire teams to do their taxes. And if they're doing it wrong, this is how they're hiding the money. They're moving money here and there. And then you need people like Earl to be like, hey, hey, hey.
no, absolutely, and it's like even the big cases, like the billion, like we take slices, right? They'll like assign certain
Yeah.
portions of it. So I mean, it's even the attorney, like us, are split on certain cases. Sometimes I have a case. Most of the time, I work my own cases, but sometimes the cases are so big, they'll say, "Oh, you could take this little fragment,"
Mm-hmm.
or. But yeah, it was. And the thing that was, I think, the most disheartening thing from me, my personal experience, but I know everyone experienced it at every other federal agency, is IRS always gets. I mean, we're IRS. So I get it. People don't like us, but my experience at IRS was incredible. I literally, it was a dream job. I didn't know going into it was going to be a dream job. It was challenging. It was like I got to experience crazy amounts of things. When you do these deep dives into people's lives, they make their money in all like they have money coming in from every direction. So sometimes you go into fertilizer. Sometimes some person owns racehorses, or some person is a watch guy or car collector, or it just keeps going on and on. So you get this cool experience, and it's not. I know it sounds boring, but it actually it's super fascinating. Like I said, the art panel, wine stuff. But that being said, I worked around in like incredibly smart people, like some of the brightest people I've ever come across, and and I was like, and I felt blessed that the government gave me this opportunity. I didn't have a tax background really. I worked at the state attorney's office for a little bit. I did private work for a little bit, and then, I landed this job, and they gave me all this knowledge and experience, and I love my job. And like my coworkers, colleagues were incredible people. These are, people like me and you, though, too. Like they were war veterans. They were like what my mentor. She was a JAG attorney in the Navy for 6 years. Then she spent 15 years at the IRS, and then like they treated her like garbage when like this whole Doge thing, like all that service out, and she was like one of the top dogs, right? She was on every billion-dollar case. She was always going head to head with some of like the highest paid attorneys. And when she got pushed out, like because she was like a single mom to two, like commuting to and from 2 hours from like where she was at was like she couldn't just do it anymore.
Yeah.
But it was just seeing these people who gave you all this knowledge and they like helped you, and like there's times like when we were doing work and I was like, what the hell am I doing? And they pull you aside and they pull you aside, hey, like here, let me walk you through it. Like it was very these were very caring, compassionate people who cared about their jobs, that were patriots, that like loved service to their country, and all of a sudden they're treated like garbage. And we were the only people, like, my program is mostly attorneys, but there's another program called Global High Wealth, and I know they took a massive hit too.
Yeah.
Those are mostly revenue agents. But again, we had an important job to do, and all this thing is gone. So
Yeah. Think about that. Think about everyone, all the normal people are upset because we can't afford anything. There are no jobs. Um, we're being convinced that it's the black and brown communities. We're being convinced that it's illegal aliens. We're being convinced that it's all of this stuff. But when Doge goes through, Doge went through and dismantled all the things that were doing somewhat positive things. And they went through and they fired all of these guys that were holding rich people to account.
yeah,
Explain to people, you were part of the government when Doge went through and started cutting and slashing. Did you ever hear of or see or any plans to have Doge address the Department of Justice or the Pentagon in any way?
no, so not from that perspective, nothing like that. My office is in Tampa. We did have one of the guys I worked with was kind of, I don't know, he was kind of on high alert because he kept saying like stuff was happening with his cases. I don't know um, um, how accurate that is or whatever. I
Yeah.
think it's just there's a lot, but we
According
had
to him, he
yeah.
started seeing some fishy
Yeah,
stuff.
there's some he saw some fishy stuff, and the big thing too is the IRS is very, very serious about disclosures. So even when like you have coworkers, they can't with tax cases unless it's like an absolute need to know basis. Like I can't just go there like, hey, what's going on with this guy's tax return? That's an
Sure.
absolute.
Yeah.
So the IRS was very serious. So like obviously there's no way for, but it was you could
But
see that.
even public facing stuff, public information, we never heard of Elon going through the defense budget and looking at the numbers in the defense budget.
But I
Why? And that's because him and his friends, that's where him and his friends make all their money.
Yeah. No, yeah, because they need to keep those government contracts in place.
Right.
But everyone else's government contracts got blown up.
Yeah.
I mean, it was to put it.
And again, just to bring it back to like you have a person and their friends, whether it's Elon and all the money coming from the Department of Defense, or it's Anna Paulina Luna in her area, and she's got all her friends that don't let you, that not that they don't let you, but uh, I'm sure they're running interference to the point where you're not being interviewed by the local newspapers.
Yeah, I mean, there. It's one of those things. I used to be like, oh no, that's fine. But like, there are, especially when I was at IRS, um, it was like we knew stuff was going on. Things were changing. Like, and being at Treasury and knowing there's also a system in IRS called IDRS, and that's the system that holds all of your taxpayer information. Like,
Hmm.
and when they were talking about like getting access to that was terrifying because IRS it's an old system. It's like I think it was made in the 70s, and they haven't updated it because as technology has increased, because like no one knows how to break it. Like no one can break into it or something. But it holds everything. Like it's crazy. And again, IRS really enforces, they call it UNACT, unauthorized, like, or whatever, UNACT violations. They track everything. And, but again, you can see everything on somebody's return. Like, if I pulled your file up, I could see, like, what crypto you sold, or, you know, what your mortgage interest is. I can see everywhere you ever, you know, every tax return you filed, or if it's not in the database, I can make a request to see it. And the thing is, there's so many details in tax returns, because it's sometimes you need to prove this to, like, the bank or whatever, and some, like, people tend to be honest when you want a deduction or a credit. So there's so much, like, you can see you can literally see everything, and them getting access, having like 21-year-old kids with no idea how that works, is terrifying. And these are deeply, very, very, very private records, and them getting access to it. But also, we felt I mean, I had people into IT that we talked to, and it was just, they were just chopping up, like, our ability to do our job across the board, and we were losing weird contracts. Like, for instance, the stupidity of some of it is, and in the state and gift tax, we do obviously deal, like, a lot of real estate, right? Like, we have to deal with farmland, you have to deal with commercial properties, and we had the government had a contract for I think it's called RealQuest. Been a minute since obviously I was there, but RealQuest gives you a deep dive into real estate valuations, super accurate. Got rid of that contract, right? And then, like, there was some, like, legal stuff. I don't know if it's Thomson Reuters, but it had something. They misinterpreted it as, like, Thomson Reuters being a liberal. They didn't misinterpret it. They did it on purpose. Thomson Reuters or something had a liberal connection because it had, like, a liberal, like, a news report. Well, Thomson Reuters is also owns Westlaw, which is the top tier legal research database, like, across law. And, like, so they were cutting up these contracts based on nothing. So all of a sudden, you took my ability away to evaluate real estate accurately. So when somebody's like, oh, my chateau in France is worth $10 million, the only mechanism I had to check that is Zillow, like Zillow or Redfin. Like that's how bad it got. So I can. So instead, when I would talk to opposing, like, the other side's attorney, hey, like, your house in Naples or whatever, it's not worth $35 million. Well, where'd you get that? Zillow. Like, I mean, so it's. And that being said, is we also had in-house experts, in-house real estate valuation experts, like legitimate valuation people, but they're all gone though too. Yeah. So it's just, it made the job impossible, and I think it obviously is by design.
Do you have any insight as to, how Trump got busted, the 36 felonies, whatever? Do you have any insight into that situation?
Not particularly.
No? Okay.
Again, I will, IRS is very good at keeping control of stuff like that. I came in in 21, so I was at the IRS just around 4 years, and I remember hearing about it. But from my understanding, is there's, like, certain, obviously, social security numbers are on an additional, like, lockdown. And when there's certain people of certain net worth, there's, like, a panel that kind of talks about whether, like, what aspects they need to do a deep dive on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just, and yeah, the other thing,
because you know how people say, oh, he just got in trouble for like massaging numbers on a form, and I'm like, yeah, but that's a legal form.
Yeah, and you're swearing under perjury that it's accurate, right?
Yeah. So like, I understand that business people do that, but if it's against the rules, like, try cheating on your taxes.
Yeah.
You try shaving off just a little bit so you look a little bit more important, and get back to me and see how the legal system treats you.
And so I will say this from my perspective, there is a little more leeway given to high and just because the numbers. Like again, you get these weird. I didn't mess on the income side that much, so I'm not like an income tax expert. It was all estate and gift tax. I mean, I had some experience in income, but generally speaking, when you're dealing with these super large estates, and what we like generally say, I don't know if you're gonna like this, but is it substantially correct, right?
Yeah.
If a majority of it's correct, so like, but that's the thing is like my world is valuation is very subjective. It's a lot of valuation stuff.
Yeah.
But they also get a lot of tools to adjust the valuation. But some things are just so blatantly wrong that's where we could get them on like we could hit them with like additional negligence penalties and stuff for just being egregiously wrong, not backing it up, not doing it the right way. But there are they get some wiggle room. But the thing is, and this is kind of more or less it's more on that valuation side. So again, I don't know exactly what his returns look like, but that being said, if he's convicted, it was probably not associated with valuation. It was probably again, I think it was with him getting like loans or something like that too.
Yeah.
If he's
For me, it's a bigger problem. I don't even like Trump is a businessman, and I've hung out with businessmen. I know how they think. I know that this is the status quo. As a matter of fact, when Trump started getting, I think it was right after the decision had come down, they had Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank on there, and he's like, everybody does it. And I'm like, so you're all cheating?
Yeah.
Did we not learn from Enron?
Yeah.
Did we not learn from the real estate scams that happened in 2008?
As long as they're making money and we're going to pay the price, I mean, they're going to get bailed out again, right? I mean,
and that's the thing that pisses the normal people off. Like, we can't cheat on our taxes, and we're struggling to make $100, getting $100 back from the government. These dudes are moving record numbers of dollars back and forth, and it seems like it's us that get busted for doing because we tried to put a golf outing on our taxes.
Yeah. No, yeah, you're 100% right. It's one of these it's even with like gifting and all these weird stuff. The world we work in is like people like I don't know, like the gifting when they gift stuff over $17,000 or like pay their kids like crazy amount of money. And say, oh, like they earned that money, and it's like no, like they were like
they didn't do shit.
They didn't have an education for that, or that wasn't their role, or this is a very small, and they do all this stuff just to move money.
Yep.
And it's just, and normal people don't have that. Like you have your 401k, and you get a few deductions here and there.
Yeah, if you move money, you're moving $150 from savings to checking because you have to go do groceries.
Exactly.
That's your moving money.
And it's just I don't think people realize the difference between us and them. Like, until you see a tax return of a billionaire.
Exactly.
See that, granted, we, like, live in that world. I worked in that world, so it's like, it's normal, right? You get 3 boxes, and you see, the state's worth, like, $1.2 billion or whatever. That was normal. But the amount of money that people, their attorney's fees are crazy. They're like paying their CP, and all these people are at work, making sure this money flows to and from. And it was up to us to try and catch them. But again, it's night and day, like for people like me and you. And it's like they get if they're willing to pay a little extra money, they get every benefit to make sure they're gonna at the end of it, it's gonna benefit them.
Right. Their circles are going to take care of them. That's what I'm learning. It depends on where you are and what your circle is. Your circle is going to take care of you.
And it's crazy too because I'm not going to sit here and say every estate I handled was like a lot of them were like people inherited wealth. And it's cool. Like you do see something cool. Like there's I can't talk about the cases like in detail, but like a guy immigrated to the United States up in like Vermont and started his business, like very small, very and then exploded, right? And he did, and so his estate was, we took care of it, whatever. But then you also see people, you know, their parents own this, all like, own these businesses, and then like they bought real estate in, Missouri. I don't want to give too much details. In certain, like, around certain cities, for $5 million in 3 years, exposed to $400 million. Sell to developers, and on the, like, we have to read the obituaries. We go digging for all this stuff too, and it's just like, oh, like, the kids get it, and like, well, this kid's self-made. He got, like, he started from nothing.
Yeah.
His dad was just a simple CPA, and you're just like, come on.
Yeah,
And
stop it.
but that was, honestly, that was part of the game, though.
Unless his dad was working the night shift at a gas station, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, but it was part of it. It was like, it was a cat and mouse game, and sometimes you got
Yeah.
people, like, it was funny, like, people would be like, you'd look on the 706, and or and they list jewelry, like Patek Philippe's and Rolexes or something. Sometimes you Google their name, and this never happened to me, but I remember one of my trainers talking about this. Had a particular person, and like, so she started, and when she Googled it, this person had this like $3 million watch. Like, there's an article about the watch they bought, right? And then that wasn't on the 706, and so it was like, that was a fun conversation. So where's the watch? And so that was, and those were like, really, I mean, again, in these conversations, they do stuff to, and I mean, and that's the thing. Congress has given them this ability to, like, do certain, but sometimes they're just so blatantly illegal, or they just know what they're doing. And it was cat and mouse game. Sometimes you catch them on simple issues, like one of my last cases. They didn't file, like, it was a very minimal mistake, but it was a catastrophic mistake. And this is when the Doge thing, it was one of my last cases, and they signed, the return was a few weeks late, and they don't get a transfer credit to their spouse. It ended up being like a $6 million mistake. And then, hey, like, you got to make that phone call, and you're like, hey, like, sorry. And there's literally, and a new court case opinion came down about that exact issue a few weeks prior, and like, here's the case on it. Like, peace out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll send the final paperwork. So
Mm-hmm.
there's, like, it is a cat and mouse game, and but again, it's our job. We were trained, we were competent, and the other thing too is, right as Doge happened, my group, State and Gift Tax, just finished hiring like 50 people, just finished training like 50 people, and that's like through that 3-month program. They
got let go,
and so they gave them, God knows how much money the government put into these people, right? Like, for travel, education.
Yep.
And these are, like, for 3 months, these people aren't working cases; they're getting trained, and they're gone.
And they're still getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like,
so you want to talk about efficiency? That is inefficient.
Yeah, well, the Washington. Oh, man, I wish I had the number. Washington Post just article said, like, yeah, $500 million of, like, we paid people not to work, and so the deficit's going to increase, and everything. Again, it just stinks, because these are people's real lives. It's these institutions, not even IRS. Like, I can't imagine. I know IRS suffers severe brain drain. I don't know if it's gonna take. I think people will come back, because I think people love their country and they want to serve it. But the other thing is, federal workers are going to be so scarred that they're not going to want to work again unless there's some sort of contract that protects them. And
sure,
but Congress has to do something. But whether it's NIH, Department of Energy, like, even the military, Department of Defense, like, I mean, all these agencies are somewhat connected. And we had really, really bright people working, and now, and I even have friends that have been recruited by outside of my IRS circles, but friends just that are really smart and they're working for other agencies. They're getting recruited by other countries.
Oh, wow.
Like, they're other countries are fully aware of the workforce and the like, education of these people, but also it becomes a national security issue too, because they're working on very sensitive stuff. They would cut them loose, And like obviously sometimes hopefully like national security issues will keep them from going and doing that. But again, even one of my close friends he works for SOCOM and Special Operations Command, and like they told him like you're gonna start getting stuff from China. Like China's gonna start sending stuff to people that they know are disgruntled federal employees to get them to come over. Like they had that intelligence. I'm not saying anyone did it, or actually I think there was a federal employee that got busted for trying to give information to China because he's so pissed off. But it's just the brain drain across all agencies, not SOCOM, not Department of Defense, not IRS, but all our sciences. You have people that are struggling. They're not making money. They like were on furloughed or whatever. And like it's going to be our allies too. Like France might recruit them. And okay, that's not China, but it's still France is going to benefit, and that's our loss.
Right. Yeah, I I think it's funny how when Republicans are in charge, they beef up security in the streets. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they go and they get more police officers, they go and get more ICE agents, they do all that stuff. But when the Democrats are in charge, they go and they hire a lot more IRS agents.
Well, it's always I don't know. Somebody said it is like we always elect Democrats when like shit hits the fan kind of deal. And
Boy, has it hit the fan.
but that being said, but I also don't think it's just you elect Democrats for the sake of electing Democrats. But like to your point though, I think it's the other issue that we're suffering as a country is like we talk about nuance and context. I think a lot of it's us getting the messaging right. The one thing Democrats have struggled with is, I think messaging. Like we were talking the other day, is instead of saying we'll say food insecurity or nutritional assistance,
Hmm.
and instead of saying like grandma's starving, and so when like for Republicans have really been able to be effective when they say crime, like you talk about crime,
Hmm.
and so they're able to boost your law enforcement. You're able to boost ICE.
Yeah.
But the thing we've struggled is like we know how to fix crime, but it's a systemic problem, and it's not the ICE and police thing is a band aid, right?
Right.
If it's crime's a cancer, you have to start at the very bottom. You have to do the boring stuff, right? Which is invest in education. You have to invest
Yes.
in everyone. You have to give people daycare. You have to give people transportation options. You have to boost the local economy. You have to do all
Yes.
these boring stuff that doesn't make good news, but you have to stop from the bar. Like, if you want to not have cancer, you should eat salad and,
Right.
not drink every day. And
Stop eating so
so,
much processed food.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
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 And so you need to, and so that's the one thing that Democrats have always struggled with messaging is because, and I don't also want to say Democrats because I think historically there have been Republicans that have been like, if we're helping everyone, that should help fight the crime. But right now, it's the messaging is so simple to say crime is bad, police. Like that's not how it works.
Right. That's
Immigration,
been that's been my argument with this whole overreaction with ICE
yeah,
is um so number one, I grew up in the inner city. I grew up watching police beat up black and brown people.
yeah,
So this everything that you're seeing in the news right now is not new. It's old news. I have been watching it for 53 years. So as far as messaging goes, I think it's easy for Republicans because they say business drives innovation and it makes everything better. So we need money to run businesses. The Democrats or the left side of the argument, they're it's more of a shotgun thing.
hmm
We want equal rights. We have women's rights. We have black and brown people rights. We have food insecurity. And then when you say, like, when someone says homelessness, and they come back, no, 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 it's houseless
insecure.
or whatever. You've already turned off everyone that's they're about the business, they're about the money.
Yeah, and
So it's unfortunate that the left's messaging seems scattered and unfocused, but that's because they worry about more stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I no, that's actually a great point. It's because, especially with social media, and the idea is it just make this hustle culture, right? Like just
Yeah.
money, 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 money,
Yep.
and it just doesn't work that way. Like I mean, it's great that people want to hustle, and I think people respect that. But at the
Hmm.
same token, you can't hustle unless you have a car. Like you can't hustle unless you know, like your broken leg
Unless
is
you
getting.
can get there. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
it's
I'm gonna add this. You can't tell me that hustle culture. I haven't done shit but hustle.
yeah.
But you don't see doors opening wide open. All you see is me hustling and hustling some more and struggling some more.
Absolutely. And I think that's the other thing too is I remember somebody saying like I believe in a free market. I do like capitalism. Like I think there, but if you're gonna do capitalism, it needs to be capitalism. Like this is
This crony shit doesn't
yeah
work.
yeah. And then when you say capitalism, you need to level the playing field for mom and pop shops versus Amazon. Like
Right.
you need to get rid of non-competes because that's straight up anti-capitalist. So if we're gonna call it a capitalist system, call it a capitalist system. But
Right.
it is the government's obligation to invest in its people. And if you invest in people, you will get a return. You will get a
Right.
return. And so it is
You
government.
know, you know who police don't beat up? People that are going to school and that are it's obvious they're going to school.
Yeah, and exactly, and that's government needs to pave the way. Like that's the thing is like I like,
Yes.
and I think we get hung up, and there's always these talking points that again, it's the messaging with Republicans. Very simplified. It's very effective. It's fear based or whatever. But the thing is, when we talk to people in their everyday lives, that's how you connect with people. It gets getting away from this, like again, these words that food again, like those. It just drives me crazy. Food insecurity. No, like that person's
People are
hungry.
hungry.
Yeah, yeah. So it's getting that messaging right, and I think that's the benefit of being kind of a younger, newer politician. Is I like I have it's funny like me and you talking like we're look alike or whatever, but we have radically different. I grew up in Wyoming, right?
Yeah.
But my mom was also my family is also lower income though too. So we had radically different experiences, but at the same token, we know what it's like to struggle. Like I know what it's like to go
Right.
in the convenience store, eat ramen
And
noodles.
we know what would make things better.
Yeah, so I think that's a common experience that. But the thing it's also shaped is our empathy and compassion for people in that position now, right?
Right.
I'm fortunate, like I did a lot of stuff because the government invested in me. Like
Right.
I used the GI Bill. I didn't have to pay a
Same.
dime after law school. So and that has had big returns. Like I mean, I'm paying my taxes. I'm a taxpaying citizen. I landed a job with the government where I guess they were paying me again. But anyway, but still, like I was doing a job, like and now I'm like I'm in giving back to my community and I'm doing stuff and I'm paying taxes and that investment and I think people like me and you we see that we experienced it firsthand the programs that were put in place before the institutions the people that came before us said hey like we need to take care of others we benefited from that and we know this country only gets better when we do that when we uplift everyone this is the whole idea that we're punching down right now is complete bullshit and the government needs to uplift everyone like and especially those people that don't have the voice don't have the ability to hire a lawyer don't have the ability to fight back it's about uplifting everyone and everything our forefathers built for this I mean we were again not a perfect nation but it was about being better like making it better for the
Right.
next generation.
And I think that's why they wrote it the way that they did. It's in the pursuit of a more perfect nation. If
Absolutely.
we get there, cool. But like, you know, I used this analogy. When I was a kid in Chicago, I looked up to Michael Jordan. I wanted to be a basketball player just like Michael Jordan, boy. I would go and I would practice and I would go and I stick the tongue out and I, do all the things. Did I make it to the level of Michael Jordan? No. But there's a couple dudes that got dunked on.
Yeah. No, I mean it's
You know?
inspiration. Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to keep working on it. But sitting here saying, no, this is just the way that it works. No, it doesn't. And
Yeah.
and Trump is a very good example of, if you really want to make things change, you can. He
Yeah.
has.
He just did whatever he wanted, and that's, I mean, I don't know if that's the mechanism going forward, but like, I mean, to because that's the thing. Imagine doing what he's doing right now, but
but
improving people's lives.
but with good ideas.
Yeah, yeah, like literally, like, hey, like, I'm just gonna start a massive jobs training program.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure every kid has food. Like,
Yeah.
okay, like
Yeah.
that should be a non-political issue. And meanwhile, you're worried about $80 in welfare getting wasted because, like, the thing I was thinking about is, even if there is any sort of fraud, right? Even if there's any sort of fraud whatsoever, and you have 100, like 95% of people are getting fed, and there's 5% fraud. That's 95% of these kids that are getting hungry. I mean, getting fed. They're getting taken care of. That is worth it to me. That is worth it for five people to be scummy, human, and we'll catch them eventually. But if you're feeding hungry kids, okay, that's a trade-off I'm willing to take. I'm willing to take that loss.
And explain to me why people, given those, let's say those numbers were accurate, and I know you're just going off the cuff,
Yeah,
but let's say we were feeding 95% of the people, and there was 5%, um what'd
fraud
you
or
say? Fraud.
yeah,
Yeah.
fraud or some.
There are some people that would still rather give that money to business owners. And I'm like, did you not see Enron? Did you not see what happened in 2008 financial crash? Did you not see the Bernie Madoffs? Did you not see all this stuff? You are more likely to get taken for a ride by a business owner than you would the government.
Absolutely. I mean, think about your overdraft fees and your I don't know, all these fees that, like, I don't know, just your transact, like when you pay rent. You're like, you have, like, you try and pay
Yeah.
rent. You have to pay a transaction fee to pay your rent, right? Like,
Yeah. When I pay, what is it? It's either the VA, because I have to pay, I get my health insurance through the VA.
huh?
So it's either the deductible on the VA stuff, or it's when I'm paying for my license and license plates and stuff like that. There's a transaction fee there too.
Yeah, and it's like, it's completely, but this is the thing, and that's like, again, it's why one of the weirdest things too is, like, Bernie Sanders is like, everything about Bernie's like crazy. The fact he's an independent, but he's very far left, but like, he's respected among Republicans. Like, they don't like him, but there's a lot of Republican people that vote Republican that don't like him, and I think because he
He's
does a
been
good
saying the
job.
same thing for 50 years.
But he does, like, a good job of highlighting this stuff in a very normal manner. Like, he talked about postal banking, a postal banking, which is government banks where you're not getting nickel and dime. Like,
Yeah.
so it's, you're not getting overdraft, like crazy overdrafts or whatever. So it's a service. Hey guys, it's okay to have services where you're not being exploited for some guy to have a yacht. Like, and even
Right.
that, you can connect with people, because when you're struggling, if you're Republican, because guess what? It's not only liberals struggling; it is everyone struggling just as
Everyone's
equally.
struggling.
And you have $5 to your name, and all of a sudden you hit like an overdraft fee of negative, $35. That hurts. Like, that stings when you're struggling, and that shouldn't be political. And so he's done a really good job of highlighting, like, hey, there's certain things. Government is not a business. That's the biggest thing. Is the most important
Yeah.
thing, I think, going through law school. Like, you go through, like, you learn about the constitutional law, but government has obligations that businesses do not have, and people do not know that. Like, business guys, government has to pay for a navy. Government has to
Hmm.
pay for an army. Government has to, like all this. The government has to, courthouses. They have to pay for all this stuff. The businesses don't have that obligation, right?
Right.
So
Businesses don't need to pave the roads. Businesses don't need to make sure that the traffic lights work.
yeah, so government has obligations where you can't say, like, hey, like, it's a business. And there's the thing that I was talking about the other day that was interesting is, I think people are so struggling so much that they only can see dollar signs, and it makes it easy to monetize everything now, right? Because when you're struggling, and that's where we're going. Like, when they're trying to, like, monetize the national parks or sell portions of that stuff is meant to be enjoyed. That is a service. There is no dollar sign that should ever go on that kind of stuff.
Right.
And that is for the public trust, the public benefit.
Yeah.
And that's
You're from Wyoming, which is
yeah.
perfect. Or originally from Wyoming. You're from Florida now. Um, the national park there, we have Old Faithful.
Yellowstone and Teton, yeah. Great. I mean
Yep. So imagine having something as beautiful as Old Faithful and the Tetons and all that stuff. Um, but it's privatized and there's hotels everywhere.
yeah. And then you have to pay $100 to get in there to go to Old Faithful, and there's
Right.
there's a Waffle
Like
House.
Disney level, like imagine having to pay Disney level money to go see nature.
Yeah. And it goes against everything. Again, like you think about Teddy Roosevelt, like that goes against everything. I mean, if you go to these parks, like I remember the first time I went to Yosemite, the government sent me out there when I was training with the IRS. They sent us to Fresno, and I remember going to
That's cool.
Yosemite for the first time. I was like, holy this is crazy. It took
There's
my breath.
buffalo right there,
Yeah. And Yosemite,
walking on the road that your car is on.
and I was just like, man, I was just like, wow, and I just can't fathom a world in which that is okay, like that, where there are certain things in life that is a benefit. Like we can't the fact when we start monetizing everything, it breaks everything. And if you don't have a nickel to your name and you're having a bad day, you should be able to go to a public park, lay on the grass, take a second to catch your breath. You shouldn't have to pay $10 to do it, and then your time's up. Or if you buy a cup of coffee, you could stay long. It's
Or a membership fee
yeah,
to go to a fucking park.
yeah. No, you're right. That's or like the beaches, right? Like I mean, in
Right.
all these states. I mean, I know California is fighting it too with you really wealthy owners, and like this is public. Like this is our country. It's not yours. It's ours. And again, when everyone benefits, the whole idea, I just can't fathom a background in which it's me, me, me. Like, I just can't fathom.
Yeah.
And I think it takes, I don't know what kind of trauma or the lack of experience that you have to come from to be me, me, me. It's just beyond my comprehension.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a lot of me, but then the me goes into these little circles that we're learning about. You know, Trump and his little circle that's running things right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have Elon and the PayPal mafia, you know.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of me, yeah. But it's a lot of these small little groups that are out here really. And the more money these little groups have, the more influential they are. The more influential they are, the more we see people struggling.
Yeah, and it's just but it's this people struggling that are targeted, right? They don't have a voice.
Right.
They don't and like they can't you can't protest when you got to make the rent. Like that was the other thing.
You got to be at work, yeah.
Like I mean that was the other thing too. People were like we're talking about sorry one second. People were talking about like why isn't there riots in the streets? Why are we having a revolution? Because we got to get food on the table, man. Like if you leave, you're gonna like we don't know what the economy is right now. So if you leave your job to go like say fight the system during the No Kings protest, it was you can't afford to do that, right? You just and especially when you have obligations, you have kids that you got.
And now with ICE, like people like me can't just roll up to a protest like that anymore.
Yeah, and then especially now, and I don't. The scary thing about ICE is I don't know to like the thing circling around the states like Florida and Arizona is at what point do the scariest thing, and I don't even know the answer to this stand your ground laws kick in, right?
Yeah.
If I have a masked guy that's unwilling, like just has police, like and you're in fear for your life, I don't know. That is.
And I saw a video, like, and it wasn't a video that just some kid was making. It was some news video where some people were admitting to going on Amazon and finding ICE costume stuff.
I think there's already been like people like that got convicted of kidnapping. There's the guy that got convicted. He was at an ICE facility assaulting a woman.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the thing is there now it's become to the point like they're not legitimate and you can't identify people, and if you say like like a person like me and you watch the news and you see like some guy like some person get kidnapped, is that reasonable fear? Like yeah, it
Right.
might be. So
Right. I
it's
don't know if that's ICE or some asshole trying to do some goofy
So
stuff.
I don't know the answer to that. Like I really don't. It's terrifying to me the fact that I don't know what that means. Like
Yeah.
in a state like again like Florida has a very strong stand your ground. It used to be on the defendant to make the case that they're in what is it? They switched it around. It was like used to be the defendant that had to prove that they're in fear of their life, but now the prosecution has to flip. There's some weird twist they made on it that make it very stand your ground very effective in the state of Florida. So you could get away like it's very liberal, I guess to say the least. But yeah, I don't know what that means going forward. And but the only benefit of Florida is it's a very very Republican state. So I don't know. I mean they're here, they are here, but obviously his intention is to be in Minnesota and New York and
Hmm.
California.
Make a show.
Yeah. So yeah,
What are some more of the local things that your constituents are dealing with?
I think for me is it's one of those things. Affordability is kind of across the thing. Home insurance is huge here. Home insurance prices have skyrocketed not only because property insurance has seen a significant the last 4 or 5 years. Home insurance, so everything kind of trickles back to affordability in the bigger sense. But Florida in particular, especially with the hurricanes the last few years, and there's not a lot of insurers are leaving the state, so there's not really a good mechanism to insure, but especially with again if the hurricanes hit, uh, the state is backing people, but some of the previous ideas have a federal reinsurance programs to kind of be a backstop for states like Florida, where to make sure like the premiums we could keep the premiums down, where it focuses on exclusively, you know, the working class type homes rather than a lot of the big houses on like on the water. There's also talks of making sure the bigger people who can self insure, pushing that more, pushing that out there a little more. But then also electricity prices have skyrocketed out here as well. And then, well, I mean, and then the big thing, local businesses, and it's one of these things. It's affordability is kind of this issue all around the country, but with local businesses, the loss of labor, ICE, right? Like
Hmm.
construction here, or doing like there's Florida's a huge agricultural state, even though Pinellas is not particularly, but that all has an impact on the pricing that people see. So,
Hmm.
but Dallas also has a pretty decent sized senior population. So Medicare, Social Security are very important, and a lot of seniors are really struggling right now. So the one thing is, when I first started running, I kind of like, oh, like maybe stabilize it. And then the more I talk to people, like that's not enough. We need to drive down costs now. So one of the things I always kind of talk about is, obviously the tariffs, but with health insurance and home insurance, big topics. But basically, it's about transparency, right? If you're able to open up the books, you're able to eliminate unnecessary middlemen. You can see how your money is being spent. And then also, realistically, we got to encourage competition. What we talked about capitalism. So
Hmm.
talking about antitrust, encouraging competition, encouraging other people to come in to really kind of drive down the cost. So I think affordability across the board, but also those safety nets of health insurance, and then again, people are hungry. Like food prices are not going down. Inflation's not being. The administration says they're bringing it down, but uh, there's we know,
We're tired of waiting.
yeah. So, but yeah, and then like the other thing too is infrastructure. Like I mean, there's some new housing developments in the process, and there those transportation stuff, especially in like Clearwater Beach and those areas, have a lot of congestion. So it's a lot of things right now, but I think again, it always was it James Carville? It always says like it's the economy stupid. It's people's wallets. Like that's the thing is like people are so they're feeling the effects every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I don't want to say affordability, but it's just we got to lower the cost of everything. And then, like I said, I kind of like those ideas that I mentioned to kind of start the process. And when you maximize transparency, that's the thing that it resonates with Republicans too, right? They're skeptical.
Right.
So
And
so
that's the part that I don't argue with Republicans because here in California, like LA spent a lot of money on homelessness and it only got worse. So yeah, this transparency thing, but like actually make it transparent.
and I think that's the other thing too is I think transparency is not transparency across the board is huge, and whether it's government, whether it's like I mean I know businesses need to have privacy or whatever with something like, but the other thing is when you have single owner, like there's one electric company, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a monopoly, so
Mm-hmm.
we should know how they're being run, and when they're
Or even not just necessarily that, but we know that like these cable companies, we know that they form their own kind of union. It's not necessarily a proper union, but we know for a fact that when you go to one area, there's one kind of cable provider. You go
yeah.
to the other area, it's a different cable provider or internet provider. And that's because they've made the conscious effort to not challenge each other in those different areas.
And then, yeah, they're like, yeah,
That's
they're
not competition. That's not fair.
yeah, and so it's just
And then they
again,
get mad at the people that do that and they're trying to unionize. People are doing that very same thing.
yeah, you're welcome to get all US of A, huh? No, I mean, no, absolutely. So it's like I said, I think there's um, the affordability issue is huge, and it's like again, like tariffs are always a low hanging fruit, but it's also like you have to. The big thing too, running as a Democrat in Florida, is you have to offer an off ramp to Republicans. You have to offer an olive branch to them, or give them a reason to make that leap. And I think there's certain things. There's all these things that unify us, and it's really driving those messages home. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. Everyone's struggling, but again, you want accountability. Like I mean, that's another thing I'm hearing as well within the district. Accountability with ICE. I mean, even independents
Yeah.
are not happy with what's going on with ICE. So, and I mean, some Republicans have stepped up a little more, but and we actually just did a poll the other day, and shockingly, again, independents Republicans were concerned about the corruptness in the government. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then I mean, in this administration, they see what's going on. So,
So let's talk about that because I think Republican or we'll say conservative people that see the left just wanting to feed the world and making the world a better place and all this stuff and they're like yeah but where's the money coming from and who's taking the money, who's got their money, who's got their hand in the cookie jar.
mhm.
This government has invested so much money, time and effort in AI, but I haven't really heard anyone talk about how we can leverage AI and or a form of AI and the banking system to actually bring transparency to where our money is going.
Yeah, I mean that's by design. I mean, I like right now. I mean, I don't know if there's like certain federal contracts and stuff like there. It's when people like contract with the government, it's meant to like there's contracts like Boeing and these. I know that it's not the banking system, but there's contract, and I'm sure there's contracts with the banking system. But even when like they say, "Hey, we're going to build these jets for $350 million," that's a contract, right? That's a legal contract. And there's these contracts are specialized. So, but if they go like cost overruns and it's 40, like it's $400 million, and they experience all these setbacks that they didn't plan for, but these contracts still guarantee uh, profit. So so there's all these. They need it. They need it to be opaque and hard to see because this is just the game. government contracts, whether or the banking system, everything, when everything's hidden, they can control everything, right?
Right.
They could manipulate the numbers. They could tell you what to think. Like, you go to CNBC and like you see the Department of Labor right now issuing numbers, and people are like, are we sure about those numbers? Or like, oh, they're revising the numbers. Well, we're not seeing the numbers, like. So everything is, they need it to be that way in order to drive whatever narrative they want to. And like you say, like whose hands are in the cookie jar? Well, we don't know. Like, we honestly don't know at this point. And you're hearing weird stuff about other countries getting kickbacks, and you're hearing, you
Right.
know, yeah, so, and even
And
within,
people getting kickbacks. And that's what's driving the conservatives crazy. And it's easy for them to take a look at the people like you that are trying to feed kids. And they're like, how would it, like, where's all this money coming from? And where's it going?
yeah, and so I think it's just, I think we're at a, I mean, I don't know when we're at a breaking point. I thought we were already at the breaking point. But again, it's when people are able to have an honest conversation. You're seeing it right now, like across conservative media, right? Like, they're like, people are like, what did we get ourselves into? Marjorie Taylor Greene's like, this entire thing's a lie. So people are starting to see, like,
That's a really good point.
yeah. And the other thing too is, and the other thing the administration has done a bad job of is by the fact that they're so willing to double down on what people should see, but the reality is people are, again, they're
Yeah.
saying prices are down or this is down, but reality is saying something else, you know? So, and that is, they're losing a lot of steam over that. And so, yeah, but it's again important for, in these times like this, as someone who's running for office, to, we can't go politics as usual because that's how we got here. And if
Right.
you're doing the same thing, you're getting the same result. So it's obviously, we got to skew the message, we got to change the message, and then, you know, but
Make
also,
that change.
yeah, but make sure we're delivering for everyone. Like, it's not like Republican, Democrat, but hey, like, like, I know we may have disagreed in the past, but we gotta, you know, make it better for everyone.
Yeah. And lover or hater, AOC is bringing a form of transparency. I see her talking directly to the American public using
Yeah.
social media, saying this is what's happening, this is what's supposed to happen, this is what I see, this is what's happening, da 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 da. So she's built this relationship with her constituents and those of us who just like to learn about how politics actually does work. But then people chastise her for doing that.
Yeah.
But didn't you just ask for transparency? But then when they give it to you, you get upset.
No, well, I think that goes back to the playbook, right? Like, it's just because they can't win on anything else, right? They need to drive that fear. They need to, and they create, and like this, the most frustrating thing I've ever heard, like I hear, is when they say, like, all politicians are bad. That's bullshit. Like, I mean,
I agree.
there are some really good people in office. Like, there
Mm-hmm.
are some good people who really give a damn. And the whole idea of, if you giving a damn, you trying to feed hungry kids, you trying to make sure people get education, make sure people don't have to worry about their heat bill. That's, that's just doing the right thing. But in order to drive this narrative and to counter any policy that can improve people's lives, you have to instill this fear of AOC, or I mean, I don't necessarily agree with all of her policies either. As far as
I don't
someone asked,
either.
but as far as that, someone asked me, like, as leadership perspective, I mean, she's an impressive human being. Like, she has stood up to bullies for over years. She has held her ground. She's always taken a moral high ground. Like, she has, like, I mean, she has incredible political courage, especially in this time. So someone asked me, and obviously she's the most popular person in Congress, probably for a reason. But then what else is she? I mean, she's a minority. She is a woman. She's in her 30s. That's the kind of politics. Like, I'm not saying minorities only. I mean, but she represents America. Like, I mean, we're a mix of people, right? So
It's not
So
supposed to just be, the government's not supposed to just be rich white dudes.
yeah, it's she represents exactly what her district is, what her district is, and
Right.
that passion has fueled her ability to become like a superstar. But in using that, she's been able to do good things, and like you're seeing it from a lot of again a lot of other young reps, and it's and I think that's what we need. We need people with skin in the game. Almost is what I almost kind of want to say is
Yeah. Because you have way more future left, God willing, you know what I mean? You have way more future left. AOC has way more future left than Mitch McConnell does, than
yeah.
Donald Trump does, than some of these older, but Nancy Pelosi does. You know what I mean? So you literally have skin in the game. These folks are about to clock out. You guys
Absolutely.
are just getting started.
And I think that's what even when I talk to seniors, like I tell people like, hey, I'm running because I believe it's our generation's time to step up, and like don't want to I don't want to come off as ageist, but I also feel like Congress should be filled with people who are passionate, but also have a connection to their people, like are willing to go to a rally, or willing to go to a food bank, or willing to shake people's hands and not just go to galas and just being on the
Right.
ground floor. So
Right.
and
It's
that's the
easy only doing the fun things.
yeah, and but that goes back to the whole thing when we talked about earlier, being American, being a patriot, is all those people doing those tough jobs that like require you to get up early in the morning and like go feed people, or go on the street and like be a social worker to help a homeless person.
Mm-hmm.
That's like an incredible spirit. Those people are incredible people, and like
Mm-hmm.
those are the type of people that should inspire us. It's just, I mean,
100%.
they're doing it for $40,000 a year, but they're doing it because, and that's what makes this country actually great. That's what
Yeah.
made it great, and that's what, like, we will get back to it. And that's the other thing too, is I always think America's like greatness is not made when it was not formed when like everything's all like sunshine and roses or whatever. It's always it's our greatness is coming from in the trenches, right? Like
Right.
everything when people had to unify our common struggles,
Exactly.
it was in the dirt, in the mud, like our
When
blood.
World War One and people were struggling with World War One, who did they call? Us. World War Two, who did they call? Us.
Yeah, and then but it's even then like the civil rights, right? It was like civil rights was a brutal movement, like the ending, like like we've always gone through these periods, but it's our common struggle that brings us together, and that's the stuff we cherish, right? That's why MLK's a legend, and so and I kind of feel like this is gonna be another one. Like we're gonna unify at some point. It's just at what point do we do it, and the damage, and what's the damage and the repair, like getting us back on track.
Right. We definitely have to get back to the point where we have to admit to ourselves that we are a family. And families have different family members. We have the crazy ones, we have the quiet ones. We have the white ones, we have the black ones. We have the ones in the middle, we have the ones outside. We have the ones inside. You know what I'm saying? We are
Oh
a
yeah.
family, and I nothing nothing I was in Germany when Desert Shield was happening.
Uh-huh.
And when I came home, the difference between me coming home and people from Vietnam coming home was day and night. When I was in the service, I was watching commercial or not commercials. They had like special airings of we love our veterans and we love our servicemen and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But nothing reminded me more about America being the United States being a family more than after 9/11.
Hmm.
Everyone flew the same flag.
Yeah.
Everyone in New York was nice. Everyone, everyone was on the same team again.
Yeah.
And it's terrible that we have to remind that we are only reminded that we are a family when tragedy strikes.
Yeah.
So we didn't learn from 9/11, and now we have this knucklehead in the White House. Is this going to be tragedy enough? Is this going to be tragedy enough for you guys that there are kids hungry and this man is spending $300 million on a ballroom? Is that going to be tragic enough for you to remember that we are in this together?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things too, when you say you, is like when I think that's one of the things too that we're kind of utilizing in our campaign. What you're hearing, I think the typical way of speaking in politics, you always hear people say, "Oh, the American people." This goes back to exactly what we were talking about, grandma, right? The American people. Oh, the people of Florida. But when you say you, like like you have some responsibility in this, right? Like, or this is going to affect you. So I think when I started out, like people were always like, "Oh, you can't offend the voter," but maybe like maybe like not offend the voter, but they need to understand what's going on. So not understand, but they need to know like, hey, like I'm gonna vote to feed children because and this is about you. Like if you have maybe you have a rough patch and you can't feed your kids, so I'm gonna make sure. So it's about taking care of you, but making this more personal because politics, it's. I think you've heard probably someone say, "Oh, it must be such a like." It's like people are like, "Who? I don't care about politics." That's a gift. If you could say, "Oh, I don't care about it," like what a gift to imagine. Because everything in our life right now is politics.
100%.
Whether it's the tolls you're on, or the roads you take, or the type of schools your kids go in, or the pesticides used on your food, everything is about politics. So is we're in a world where we need to focus on the overall goal is just to make everyone just wants to live a happy life. They don't want to struggle. Most people don't want to be a billionaire. They just want to chill out, have a good time with their family, take vacation, have a rewarding career. It's very simple. People are very simple. And it's just again, but making it about you, connecting with people, shaking their hands, looking in the eyes. This is about you. But if it's also about you, the criticisms are going to come too. Like if you are going to support this, you're going to own this. Like you are going to own this. And that's the other thing with the administration is a lot of these people will own what is going on right now for the rest of their lives. I mean, so it's something we're going to have to navigate, but ultimately we have to rebuild this country, and it's making sure they own up to it. But also make sure it never happens again, and that's where the accountability comes in. People will need to go to jail, especially these ICE agents that have killed 16 people since and then that's not even including the people who have died in ICE custody, which is exceeding 30 people. So again, people need to be held accountable. This is about you. Everything about politics is you, and people need to be held accountable. But we also need to make sure people are treated with the dignity and respect that they deserve.
Yeah. I want to bring something up, and this is more because I'm a petty bitch. When I am in California, folks from Florida say, you guys are taxed and you guys are blah, 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 and this is cost of living, blah, blah, blah. But I can drive from the border of Oregon and California all the way down to Mexico. And all I have to pay for is gas. In Florida,
Everything's toll.
I can't go to the grocery store without paying 4 tolls.
Yeah. No, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, though, right? Like the blue states. And when you invest in people, so obviously California has like their tax rate, it's the base tax rate. But we were talking about this offline earlier, but there's like studies that show Texas and Florida pay higher tax than
California.
Because Texas and Florida have a more regressive system, where California has a more progressive system, so more people at the top pay, where the normal person normal people don't pay as much, and like I think the state gives you like more refunds and stuff, and they have like a more robust healthcare system. Whereas Florida, everything is kind of based on, well, it's going to get worse because they're talking about repealing property tax. So overall, like the cost associated with actually living there is lower. I mean, Gavin Newsom, like I forgot the data where he got it from, but yeah, he did an interview and it's clear as day. He's like, people talk about Florida, but he's like, look at Texas and Texas and look at Texas and Florida compared to California. The other thing too is the thing about Florida is a lot of really wealthy people live here, but the normal working people can't afford. We're losing a lot of young people. What did you see whether the attack on our institutions, like educational institutions, they're assigning a lot of ideologues rather than academics to run the school system here. So there's California is benefiting in the sense that it goes back to investing in people. And I think once we start focusing on it, Florida could be Florida again. I mean, I think Florida is always kind of a centrist state with the rhetoric. And even talking to people here, it's not Florida. Everyone jokes about Florida, and I think part of it is the Florida man is a sense of like this. They call this the Sunshine Law, which really was like for years gave a lot of information. You could freedom of information type requests from the state. So a lot of people learn about Florida. But Florida at its heart is still like people are hardcore about the environment. They're hardcore about each other. They're care compassionate. But the political, like when you have the president from Florida using Florida as like a kind of a, I don't know, like something like, just kind of using the state to kind of drive home his points or whatever. I think it's become obviously very culturally divided, but people, when you talk to them, they still care. Like even Republicans, again, like they're not so far out there. It's just they just feel like they're only stuck with two options. They're going to back their own team. But even like when I do my call time and some of my best conversations, longest conversations with Republicans, like they'll tell me off the bat, and like, hey, like I'm Republican, so I probably can't donate to you, but let me ask you about this though. And the next thing I know, I'm just talking for 20 minutes. And I'm not going to get a donation, but I'm talking about 20 minutes. And I talk to them about like service and commitment to the country and all that stuff. And they like that. So it's just, I think a lot of the things Florida hasn't seen the benefit of where California has. And California's so much bigger, and you have the cities have so much more revenue to try different things, and things may not work all the time with, like the homeless problem, trying to navigate that. It's very complex. But obviously,
for some conservative folks, we don't always get it right, and I'm the first one to always say we don't always get it right. That silliness where they're like people were able to go into Walgreens and steal $900 worth of stuff before they got any punishment. Like that's ridiculous.
No one agrees with that, and like there's no world. It's again, but it's also a utilization of resources. I'm sure the nuance of it is, was it San Francisco is happening?
It's more of a we understand that these folks are coming from underserviced areas or communities, so that's why they're doing it. So this is where it starts to get icky for people. It's racist if you arrest someone for not having something. But again, if the problem is the underserviced communities, we need to service those communities then.
You got to put money in them.
Because again, if you were to invest in those communities and more people have, or more people's basic needs are satisfied, they're not going to go out and steal $900 from Walgreens. They're just not.
They're going to be at home with their families, like watching Netflix, like they're, like a person with
getting ready for who doesn't steal $900 worth of shit from Walgreens? Someone who has to get up to go to work in the morning.
It's about taking care of each other. But then when you take care of each other, everyone benefits. Businesses benefit. And so it's like it's an overall net positive. And so so it's you're
letting people who are playing a game that you're not playing, they haven't invited you. They're ripping as much money out and under the guise of corporations and we're going to create more jobs. They're creating more jobs for people that don't live here, FYI.
Yeah.
And they're pulling and they're pulling and they're pulling, and you're starting to see the fabric of society tearing. And if you still think that letting corporations do whatever they want, running roughshod all over our population, and the population is struggling, and you think that that's the answer, unfortunately, in my book, you're wrong.
Yeah. I think, yeah. And it's just, and it sucks because they're able to use like the media to really drive. Like that's the thing.
Right. And that's why we're here. And that's
Yeah.
why we're here. Because there's a lot of you guys, Earle, that are fantastic human beings. But because no one is giving you a microphone, literally today, no one is giving you a microphone to be able to spread your message. We're still stuck in the same routine, and we're trying to tell people, no, we can do it different.
And and so I would say that's so I'm thinking I'm probably one of the, because I know how hard it is to be like a no name candidate. I know like not a no name candidate, but a candidate started from nothing. But again, the exciting part is for me like the amount of like, unfortunately viability is with money, but we found a way. We're breaking the system in a way, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to have more money than the front runners for the party, right? Like I'm not like, or I'm not supposed to have raised more money.
No, but it goes to show you how tired of the status quo people are.
And like so obviously like we had to use young people, we had to use social media, like we have to do something differently because I don't have a billionaire donor. Like I mean I've
Right.
like literally talked to people like this guy over here, this Democrat over there. He has a billionaire backer, and they're gonna start a super PAC for him. They're gonna do all this stuff. I don't have that. I didn't go kiss the ring. I didn't ask for permission, and that kind of gets back to like everything, right? Like the people who want to control the system are expected to have that phone call, have you sit down with them, and you say like, okay, well, yes sir, yes ma'am, absolutely. And I mean, I don't know. Obviously, we have in my race, we just had a one-star general step in. That's gonna, like, I think, gonna be somewhat more backed by the party than me. But that being said, we did something huge. Like, we showed that in somebody like me, with just a federal worker with no connections, we could shake up this race, and we could be we're real. I mean, there's there's a real fight in us, and it's just not me. Like I've been fortunate, but a lot of these candidates you're talking to are the same people. Like we're just pissed off, non-connected, politically connected. We live in the real world, and we're sick of how the system's running. So we're just doing this, and but we're finding ways to do it. There's like that Senate candidate in Illinois, the
Kevin
guy that didn't.
Ryan.
Yeah, the one that didn't make
That's
the
my
stage.
dog right there.
And then he made the stage and he called him out, like, right? Like, I'm not the
Yeah.
top three because I'm not going to give you guys $10 million in revenue or whatever. I'm not going to, so that's why, and people love that. I mean, people love that. Like, I don't know where that gets him this cycle, but people start to question the politics as usual, and even people within the party. And hey, this guy's stood up. And that's the kind of people we need. So,
And the more conversations that we have like this with people that are truly trying to make change, that are truly trying to take money out of politics, I think one of the things is because the established members of Congress, both sides, they're able to, because they're there and they have name recognition and people think that they're smart because they're already in Congress and all this stuff. They're able to then turn around and point at people like you and say he he's never been a politician. And a
yeah,
lot of you guys are saying that's the fucking point.
yeah,
This is
that's
not a job. This is supposed to be a service. It's not supposed to be a job.
I mean, Graham Plattner said that in his later interviews. Oh, like you're not experienced. Like he's like, in this case, that's a benefit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have to go shake hands with the billionaire. I don't have to go. I don't have to go and say like the political establishment that that greenlighted me and gave me I don't have to go do that. The only obligation I have to is the people that not even the people that select me, the people I represent. That's my obligation. And getting back to that, so I understand Congress has always been, historically, it was always rich people, but at the core, but a lot, I think a lot through a huge portion of our past, rich people couldn't get away from poor people. Like you couldn't, like it wasn't like so segregated like it is now. Like Elon Musk never has to go to a normal airport. Like they had to ride in their carriages past poor people, destitute people. So they had some connection to. It doesn't make them perfect, but I think that's where you got a lot of. They had a little more sympathy, and even like people talk about the Gilded Age. Like we're worse off in the Gilded Age than the actual Gilded Age in the early 1900s, late 1800s. But Andrew Carnegie was one of the richest people in the world, and at a certain point, like these people are experiencing poor people every day, and then he's like, it's incumbent upon us, the business people, to make sure we take care of them. And one of the things too is there's a guy, I forgot his name, but he was talking to some billionaires, and he's like, a lot of the people we remember in history, they were entrepreneurs, but we don't remember them from entrepreneurship. We remember them saying, hey, what is going on is not okay. And me as a person who loves my country and loves my fellow man, I will take my money that and I will do whatever it takes to make it better for everyone. And there's a lot of really well-known like people that we don't even, like they're business owners, and they did incredible things because it was about community.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying Carnegie was perfect at all, but I'm just saying like having that insight and having to reconcile with riding past homeless people and talking to them and having them run up to you. That's important because you need to have that insight.
Yeah. Tapping back into your community to see what's actually necessary rather than
being told.
Yeah, exactly. We have a flawed new understanding of what leaders are supposed to be.
Yeah.
Leaders aren't the person with the most money in the bank, because we're understanding now that a lot of the rich people have been handed all this money.
Yeah.
It's very, very few millionaires and billionaires that did it by themselves. Very few millionaires and billionaires that went from absolutely nothing all the way to the top.
Yeah.
They didn't do that by themselves.
No. And you're right, because I remember someone, like even now, like leadership. You hear leadership, and I think even in the military, I'm sure you've experienced too. Like there's leadership is via rank, right? But you've experienced fantastic leadership, like probably like
from lower ranking people.
Yeah, like from a corporal than you probably have from like a major, right? Like just, but it's like institutional leadership. You just kind of get it, and again, like you go look at someone like AOC or Maxwell Frost, who's very young, or was it Joe Neguse out of Colorado? But these people were never like institutional leaders, right? They weren't business leaders of their community. They weren't CEOs. They weren't, they weren't lieutenant colonels. They were just very normal people that cared about their community, and in doing so, they've been propelled to the forefront as leaders, and they've done what leaders do, is protect, set the example, but also take care of the people that they're responsible for. And I think we conflate with like leadership again, it's great that you're a lieutenant colonel, but at the end of the day, and you did this leadership training, but that doesn't make you a quote unquote leader, or the fact that you're a CEO and you went to, you never experienced what it was like to, you just went to the right schools and you checked all the boxes and you had a position of leadership, but that doesn't equate to actual leadership. And there's examples of all
just
that.
Because you have the right networks doesn't mean that you're a good leader.
Yeah, and there's examples of that all throughout history, whether it's like, thinking about the army, like Audie Murphy, right? Like the greatest soldier of all time was just an enlisted guy, infantry dude, and he was just an all-around, he didn't go to any fancy schools. He didn't he was just a complete badass, right? So it just, again, I think and again, the one thing too is throughout history, it's always normal people. It's always normal people that change history, and especially in democratic nations where like they get recognized, but whether it's the scientists who create penicillin, or in Florida, like somebody mentioned to me the other day, is the guy who created air conditioning. Like that guy's a hero, right? So, but it's just one of that kind of stuff. Normal people. So I think it's just getting back to that.
I think this is a good place to land the plane. Earle Ford, Florida 13. Give people your last pitch and then let them know where excuse me, and then let them know where they can find you online.
So my last pitch is, I mean, I'm not going to do my stump speech because I think this conversation is like incredible. But I think what people get with me is someone who gives a damn, right? I'm a public servant at heart. I served my time in the military, short time at the state attorney's office, my time at the IRS. I'm doing this because I have a 4-year-old and 1-year-old. I can no longer be on the sidelines. That the country we grew up in, the country we love, becomes unrecognizable. And my entire reason for doing this is because I believe we are better together. And I believe when we uplift each other in the communities, everyone benefits. And the oaths we swore in the military, the oaths I swore with the federal government,
Yep.
those
The
will
oath
never
to the
leave me.
Constitution.
They will never leave me, and I will not stand by idly while people in my community suffer, while needlessly suffer, or and everything's about community to me, and I want to make a difference, and I'm not okay being on those just letting things melt away. So not the greatest, not my stump speech, because I just feel this was like a unique opportunity to just be like, it's about community, man. It really is. And it's not about me, it's not about you, it's about us. So and then and then just check us out at electearle.com. That's ELECTEARLE.com. I have an E at the end of my name, so electearle.com. But that being said, everything's going great. This is freaking awesome. I love this. This was a great interview.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking time from making all those calls and trying to.
I'm about to go back in. No, but no.
Thank you for all your insight.
We'll have to do it again. This is good.
Yeah, we will. Earle Ford, everybody. Florida 13. They're there. Florida, for as much trash as I talk about Florida, it's all in jest. I kid because I really do. I have a lot of family all over Florida. One of my cousins lives in Tampa, so he's probably going to be paying attention to this video.
Oh, okay. No, perfect.
Yeah. So I do love Florida. It's just sometimes you guys jump on crazy, and we gotta let you guys come and meet Earle because we.
It's a weird world. No, I agree. It's a weird world. I mean, but no, I like, again, we're one people, man. So I like, it's just, so.
Together we can do it, man. Together we can do it. And with that, everybody, we're out.